let's do this. Thank you for coming. I wasn't expecting too much people, right? Because the topic is not very new in EU. You can find lots of things, but hopefully you're going to learn something new today. I'm Cesare Cauduro. I'm from Italy, but at the moment I'm living in Australia, Sydney, working from AECOM. You probably know AECOM is one of the biggest consultants in the world. So I don't want to dig too much into the details of AECOM. You can go and find it on the website. Let's see if this one is working. So I have a very nice title now. It's very long. It's ANZ, which stands for Australia New Zealand Digital Engineering Technology Manager, which is a new gig for saying I'm a little bit more of a big manager, looking after the research and development mostly. So my time is 50% on projects, major projects, and the other 50% is on research and development. So I use the project to understand what I need to research and develop. I got a team of 5 people at the moment. I got developers, I've got people working on the projects, and we try to understand what are the needs of both the clients and the people working with us. So we serve internally and externally. I usually like to share, before going into the professional things, this is my 10th Autodesk University, and I usually share an Italian recipe before starting. So, does anyone knows about Parmigiana di Melanzane, which is eggplants? Oh, you like it? Yeah, that's fine. So I try to find the right picture because the grandma would love to have all that olive oil there just draining from the bottom of the Parmigiana. I'm not going to go through the details, but the most important part is the tomato sauce, how you prepare the tomato sauce, okay? So have a look at that and send me an email if you have any question about the Parmigiana, because I'm used to do it. So let's go into the details now. This is more or less the agenda. Again, every year I like to find a theme for the presentation. Last year was superheroes. This year is the movie, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Who knows about this movie? It's a very old movie about Far West with Clint Eastwood. It's very nice movie, very old now. Then we will go into the setup and collaborative environments. We'll see what's next and what are the lessons learned. So this presentation is really like a very big tutorial with lots of images. So I'll go through the images. There's a couple of hundreds of images, but hopefully we'll make it through. So that's the movie, and now I want to do a game with you. So take your phone, please. So for me, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly are Civil 3D, Inventor, and Dynamo. So let's see what do you think? I'm going to open this one. Hopefully it's going to be visible. Yeah. So let's start together. So let's see who's the good. You should be able to see a quick poll. Oh, Dynamo, okay. Oh, no, come on. Okay, so InfraWorks is the good for you. Okay, let's go to the other one. Let's see who is the bad guy. Wow. Okay. Oh, so Dynamo is the good and the bad. Okay, let's see who is the ugly. So I can understand that you fight with Dynamo, but you like Dynamo. And the ugly, of course, is Civil 3D, because also is AutoCAD, you know. So that's why it's the ugly. Okay, that's good, that's good. Let's see if we can change our mind by the end of the presentation then. I'm gonna go back to this. Hopefully it's gonna work. Yeah, good. So So it all starts with optioneering. As a consultant, we mostly are engaged by the client in the early phases of the project. Sometimes it's a government project. We want to just optioneering. We need a quick optioneering. We need to make sure that from the moment we receive the client request, we want to be able to be on that same table with some option in a couple of days, not a couple of weeks, because otherwise it's not an optioneering thing. So this project is about a faster rail, which will connect, hopefully, Canberra up to the Brisbane in different phases. You can go and dig it into the website of the New South Wales government. So it's a potential 2 options, an high-speed rail with a new alignment of 250k to 400k per hour. So it's a very, they're talking about Hyperloop as well, which is probably not an option. The other one is a faster rail to upgrade the system alignment from 160k to 200k, which is likely to be the most interesting option. We're going to have special trains that will tilt more than 5 degrees in certain area just to keep the speed. And yeah, this project is a long life project. They're talking about this since 80s. Hopefully now it's going to go through. So that's the picture of the workflow. Don't worry about that. I have a zoom of this workflow really. So if you take a look to the workflow, the idea is that we start from GIS data. We gather GIS data of the territory from the GIS guy. Then we use that data into InfraWorks. And we use component roads in InfraWorks to fake the rails, because there's no rails in InfraWorks, where we do have rails, but they are not component rails. And so we developed some custom styles using some custom components, but really we are faking a rail using a road. So then we export that into an IMX. We got some custom templates based on the customer requirements in Civil 3D that we use to import the IMX and quickly shape the look and feel of the drawings. Then we refine the selection of elements we want to import inside Civil 3D. We don't really want to import every time everything. So that's what we do when we open the IMX in Civil 3D. And then, of course, when we are in Civil 3D, we start to leverage the power of data shortcuts to keep the things lighter and at the same time dynamically connected. So we usually have a file with the geometries, so alignments and profiles. Then we have another file with surfaces. We have another file with the corridors. And then we have another file with the sheets. So we try to keep the things as much as possible separate. Also because if we want to change something in the project, we don't want to open a file and wait for 20 minutes for the file to open. In large data sets, you will find that Civil 3D is creating also a local proxy geometry. So if the file is more than 2 gigabytes, Civil 3D is creating a local geometry. So every time you want to refresh that geometry, it's just a nightmare. And if that file is sitting in ProjectWise, it's even worse, because it's going to take from ProjectWise all the information, and you really wait literally 20 minutes before the drawing is open. But we try to minimize this issue, just splitting as much as possible the model, finding a tangent point, for example, where we can split the model on a straight stretch, both vertical possibly and horizontal. And then at that point, we start another one. We found that more or less 7 kilometers is the right range in Civil 3D to keep the things pretty good. This project is 240K, so you can start to multiply the number of models and the number of drawings and the number of things we have to keep in track, but they work. At the end of the day, they work, so that's good. You probably heard about that now. The data shortcuts can sit in BIM 360. I have a slide. I'll talk about that a bit later. So that's more or less what we start, where we start, really. So as I said, we gather information from the GIS guy, and so we try to have different, no, I don't want this, sorry. Here. Yeah. So we asked to the GIS guy to provide us with different DEM, some of them at 1 meter, very close to the alignment. 200 meter is the buffer we usually use for the 1 meter. Up to 2 kilometers, we use 25 meters. And then we gather all the information about the water area, and then we gather also the area information. So we got different options in AECOM. As an enterprise business agreement, we got enterprise business agreement with Bentley and Autodesk at the same time. Of course, we had a look also to Concept Station, which is the same product coming from Bentley. I have to say that at the moment, the majority of the geometry design is done in Bentley. We're trying to shift this into an Autodesk, to Autodesk solution, but yet the designer prefer MX internally to do the geometry design. So, but we chose to use InfraWorks in this project just to demonstrate that we can do it. We already had a GIS portal where we have all the client information, so we used that to gather all the information we need. And an InfraWorks model was created and published to BIM 360 just to share the information with the client, literally in real time. So we tried, at the end of the project, between the lesson learned, we understood that probably 1 meter is too much, kept the file really high, it was really big and really heavy, so probably 5 meters was most appropriate for this phase of the project, really. So that's good. So this is the good guy. So the InfraWorks dataset, and this one is exactly the example of the component roads used for the rail design. So generally, it's very easy to use InfraWorks. You can we have internal trainings that run for probably 2 days, the basic one, so people can just start to use InfraWorks very quickly. They look pretty. So it's a very nice visualization in just a couple of hours. The bridges are really powerful in InfraWorks, and our bridge engineers are starting now to use the bridge design inside InfraWorks as a very quick optioneering. Again, we have the option in Bentley, but we just like the way InfraWorks is doing. It's very easy to create video. It's very useful to be able to export that to web, and then we can push to the designers whenever we need a new library or we update the library of components. We just push it through the night, during the night to all the designers so they can get it the day after. So that's good. But now comes the bad. So the speed, we found that InfraWorks sometimes is really slow. And to be able to use large data set, you have to really tweak the things as much as possible. So we had to split not only the Civil 3D models, but we had to split as well the InfraWorks model. So we had probably about 50 different InfraWorks models connected to different projects in Civil 3D. So that was the idea we found. It is probably the best approach. So yeah, 10 kilometers already started to struggle in InfraWorks, so you have to keep it less than 10 kilometers. Depends on the complexity, but more or less it's a rule of thumb. We had a 30K option, which we couldn't split really for design reasons. And that's my designer working on that model. So it was literally crashing the computer every probably 20 minutes. So it was really angry. Yeah, we had to We had to open the windows, even though we can't do it because we are in a tower, because just the CPU or fan were just burning the computer. Civil 3D, InfraWorks, it's card enabled, but doesn't use the card as much as we would like to. So that's one of the biggest issue of InfraWorks. It's all based on GPU, but it doesn't use it at all. We don't know why. So we try to investigate that as well. Exporting. We cannot really export sections from InfraWorks. It's not bidirectional yet between Civil 3D and InfraWorks. That's a big issue. So sometimes we had to use the FBX, which is just a stupid format. It's not a real BIM format. There's no information in the FBX. So sometimes we just decided to option it indirectly in Civil 3D because of this reason. And the 30K, at the end, we just decided to move it into Civil 3D without using InfraWorks. Things are slightly better now. This is based on 2019. The 2020 is slightly better, both for Civil 3D and InfraWorks. So we're trying to give it a go again on the same project, and it seems it's going better now. That's bad. So for me, that's bad, really. So how to tweak the performance setup? So I will try to give you some tips and tricks. I don't know how much you're familiar with InfraWorks, but there's a very nice feature here, which is this delay road regeneration. So we found if you tick that box, whenever you change the alignment both horizontally and vertically, it doesn't refresh immediately the road in 3D unless you click outside of the window. So that's good because the designer can tweak it in the profile view or can tweak it in the plan view. And then just when he is happy with the option, he can click outside and regenerate the road. If you try to regenerate every time 6 kilometers, 10 kilometers, 30K, it's just a nightmare. Okay, so that's probably one of the best things we found to improve really about probably 60% the performances of a single project. Make sure that you use always optimize for speed as an option, and just make sure if you have a GPU-enabled card, most of us will have probably an NVIDIA card, just make sure that you add InfraWorks in the program settings as a software that is GPU enabled. So this will increase another probably 10 to 50% the performances of the model when you use. It still doesn't use it the full GPU power, but it will increase the performances. And then of course you start always your project with the proper project setup. So how we optioneer in InfraWorks? We import the raster image. I will just go quickly in this one. You will find all this. I will share with you the link to download everything, plus the handout and everything else. So we import the raster image. Then after we import the raster image, we quickly start to optioneering with the options. The DEM will create, of course, the surface, the existing surface, and InfraWorks is very, very quick to do the optioneering part of the design. Unfortunately, we have to use the road because otherwise we don't have the rules to design the horizontal and vertical geometry if we want to use the rail because it's not a component one. So we go further. So as I said, we have a couple of custom components which we push as a custom library. It's really, really simple. You create a shapefile in CAD, and that shapefile can become a component in InfraWorks for both the rails and the sleepers. Then we just create a simple texture that we can apply on top of that. So it's very, very quick, and it works really well. We don't really need the full detailed 3D of the rail. We just need to understand and show to the client that it's a rail. It doesn't matter if it is a road. We like to fake things with the client. So then, you can leverage the power. You can start to optioneering. You use component rows to do that. So you can start to input your dimensions. It's very, very, very easy to implement. And that's the final result. It's not very high level, how you would like to expect, but this one is done in probably less than 1 hour. So the engineers can really go into that and do it without any knowledge about 3D modeling, really. So then you can show the profile view, and again, you can start to do the vertical profile, which you can't do if you use the rail object. Using that, you create your different options inside InfraWorks, and then that's the time you go into Civil 3D. So we got a couple of, so RMS is road and maritime and something else, government in authorities in New South Wales. So we got customized, of course, templates. The trick that I want to give to you here is that we use referencing templates inside the master template. So how many of you knows about the referencing template in Civil 3D? Okay, quite a few, but not everyone. So that's probably the most powerful thing inside Civil 3D. So you can create a master template, and then you can create other templates on top of the master template, and you can just reference those templates like an XREF, like a drawings, but it's a template. And what you can do, you can swap templates whenever you want. So if you want to show the drainage, you can have a template for the drainage, which is referenced in the master template. And whenever you want to show the pavement, you have a template for the pavement, and then you swap it. So you have always the same master, let's say, model, but you swap just the initial template, and you start to produce drawings. So you don't have to create different set of drawings. You just create different set of templates, and you swap it as you need. And that's probably one of the most interesting features in Civil 3D, which is available, if I'm not wrong, since Civil 2018 or something. It's not a very old one, so that's probably why people doesn't know it. And since 2019, you can even choose what kind of information you want to reference from an external template. So before that, you just get it what you have. But now you can choose, for example, to reference only the style of alignments or the style of profiles or the point codes or anything you want to just drag from a reference template. So we have one master template and probably 10 to 15 different templates for different disciplines in the business. So whenever we need something, we just swap the template. And that's a very good one. Of course, you have to set the same coordinate system. We use this command in Civil 3D. Just it's not always visible in the interface. I don't know why there's not a push button there to set the coordinate system. So we usually type this one in. I have written on my desktop because I always forgot about that. I have to Google it every time. So I have a sticky notes now. So, and then you start to set up your data shortcut profile. So till now, we used to set up the data shortcuts to point to ProjectWise, and I have to say that is a nightmare. It's just a nightmare because ProjectWise is very slow in managing data shortcuts. You can't use versioning control for data shortcuts. It's just a nightmare. So we were pushing since ages Autodesk to introduce BIM 360 integration for data shortcuts, and thanks God now is available there, okay? So you can set up now your data shortcuts in your BIM 360 project, which is perfect. You can generate revisioning for data shortcuts. It's the same exact process you use for a desktop setup, but you set up that in a BIM 360 project, using the desktop connector. So if you have the desktop connector installed, you just find your network drive, which is pointing to BIM 360, and then we set up your data shortcuts on that. Yeah, question?
Can you data shortcut older versions
Good question. So the question is, if we can reference all data shortcuts, you have to upgrade your project to 2020. And specifically 2020.2, which was released probably a couple of days ago. So before, even in 2020.1, it's not possible to reference BIM 360 collaboration for Civil 3D. So you have, if you have an old project, you want to use that, you have to upgrade the project, unfortunately, which is not the case for most of the projects that are already started. So if you start a new project now, yeah, you can do it. We don't have a data center in Australia, so our closed data center is in US. So I found that still the performances are not quite good because we have to connect to US. But if you are in EMEA or if you are in US, yeah, the performances are like writing on your desktop machine. And that's another reason why we can't really use too much BIM 360 for these projects, because there's some regulation about where the data are stored. If they are stored outside Australia, we can't use it for government or for defense project. But for internal optioneering, yes, we can do it. So we use this one just to try to up-rev this project, try to understand what we can gain from the new project. So then, of course, you create the existing surface like you would do. Then you reference the DEM file, the difference DEM file, depending on the type of information you want to gather. We usually don't use the 1 meter one if we just want to have a reference, of course, and that's the kind of result you get. Then we used to reference the aerial photo. The difference between a simple picture and the GIS data is that you can't use an XREF. You have to use the map insert because it's a GIS georeferenced image. So you have to use the map insert to be able to place exactly the image in the location. You can't really move that image because it's georeferenced. So then you create the data shortcut for that surface, and that's published. So you go back to InfraWorks, and then you export the IMX. Of course, you don't want to export all the project. You just want to export something. And the trick I have for you here is that you don't have to create a box for the area you want to export if you want to export the entire alignment. You can just create a small box like this one, but make sure that you cross all the elements that you want to be exported in the IMX. Okay? That will create a small box, so less information in terms of calculation of the area. It will calculate the area all on this, but because you crossed something, you will export the entire object at that time. So it's just a trick. This one was a great improvement in terms of export, because at the beginning, we were trying to export the entire area without using a box or using a box for a very big area, and that took probably 10 minutes to prepare the model. With this one, less than 1 minute. So it's a very good trick. So you start then the Civil 3D production, importing the IMX inside the model that you just prepared. And you set the coordinates to match the InfraWorks one. And then you remove the proposed ground, because that's another limitation when you export the IMX from InfraWorks. You can't say, I don't want to export the ground. It will come up always if you don't want to. Okay? So you have always to remove and uncheck this one every time you do it. They said they're going to fix it and give you the option to remove it when you export from InfraWorks. But at that time, wasn't available. Otherwise, it will just bring in, again, the surface that you have in InfraWorks, but you have that surface already created as a data shortcuts in your model, so you don't really need it. So that's the result. It comes as an alignment. It comes with an assembly, which is the fake road corridor that we have created in InfraWorks. But that's not a rail, that's a road. So what we do, We create the data shortcuts for the alignment. We create a new drawing. And that's probably also another important thing in terms of performances. So when you reference a big surface inside another project, just make sure that you go under the settings before referencing that. You go under create surface reference, which is sitting under surface commands, create surface references, and make sure that you say that you don't store the references surface in the drawing, but you just keep it outside the drawing. So that's another performance improvements when you have big projects. That's yes by default, and it drives me nuts every time. So I actually create the template to remove that one. Okay, but the out-of-the-box template comes with this one as a yes. So just remember to remove it from your template. So you reference the geometry, you reference the alignment, and then you start to create a new assembly, which is a rail now. But you can use the alignment using swapping the assembly. So you do a quick setup of the assembly. It's already there out of the box. You just add the daylight and so the cut and fill for the cut and fill calculation. You do a couple of options there to match it, and then you create a corridor. So you select the alignment, you select the profile. Both of them are coming from InfraWorks. You select the new rail assembly, and then you rebuild the corridor. And boom, that's the result. So this one takes from the moment you draft in InfraWorks to the moment that you have this one, literally, probably less than 10 minutes. So you can script this one with a plugin if you want, but even with a couple of clicks, it's really easy because we already have this one in the library, in the tool palette. So it's just the matter of creating the data shortcuts the first time and then just swap the assembly. So it's really, really, really fast as an approach. Then you start to create your profile view. You make sure you wanna have the existing ground together with your profile, design profile. You create a new profile. Hopefully you have already a view style you want to apply. There's already out-of-the-box things in Civil 3D templates. Otherwise, you can have a country toolkit. Most of the regions already have a country toolkit. This one is part of the ANZ country toolkit. We just modified slightly. It was already good. And that's probably another thing you have to make sure you check when you have an existing ground, because out of the box again, as you can see, you have profile 1 and profile 2, and all of them are coming with the same object, the existing ground. But you really want to compare two profiles, the existing ground and the design profile. So just make sure to check always that you have as a profile 2 the design profile. That's another thing that drives me nuts, because I don't know why I have two profiles. I told you I want two profiles, and then you propose me just one profile. So it's just crazy. Anyway, so that's the result. Pretty quick, pretty easy. We can already have this printed out. But what we do, we insert again in this one. We referenced again the images, and we prepare the model for drawing production. So because everything is cross-referenced as data shortcuts, whenever we change something, this gets updated. And that's the power of data shortcuts. So if you don't know, you don't use data shortcuts, please start today to use data shortcuts. There's plenty of classes in the previous AU where you can learn how to use data shortcuts or how to build sub-assemblies, for example. So I'm not going to dig into that. But yeah, it's a best practice to use data shortcuts as much as possible in Civil 3D. So again, we have a separate template for plan and production. Again, also this one is cross-referencing other templates because we really want to shape the drawing based on the discipline we want to show on the drawing. So if it is a pavement, we want to show different objects. If it is a drainage, we want to show different objects. So then you choose the size, which is coming inside the template. It's always good to provide a meaningful name to the view frame group because we try to link the view frame group to the option number. So we can always try to understand if we need to regenerate the drawings, we go and we found exactly the view frame that we want to regenerate. Again, we select the bend style, bend set style, and you click on a specific point in the view. You choose the north. You choose how you want to name properly your drawings. That's something that people usually avoid, but we try to shape the name based on the name of the drawing because we save the drawing in ProjectWise, and that's what we want. We don't want to go to ProjectWise and just rename the sheets. We want the sheets coming already with the proper naming. That's another tip I want to give you. Try to not choose the settings from an existing profile view. You know why? Because if you choose that option, remember that issue about the two profiles is going to get again the same profile. So go in the wizard and just try to choose the right profile you want to see in the drawings. If you choose the previous one, even though this one is correct, it's not going to get that option. So you will generate a not correct drawing profile. So go always to the profile wizard. Then, yeah, it's just a matter if you want to align the profile view at the center, or just it's about how you want to create. It's based on the title block, really. You choose what you want, and then you generate the drawings, and that's the result. Again, this task is about, again, 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. It depends on the number of drawings. This one was just one, so it's probably 2 minutes. But if you have 10, 15, it's going to take probably 10, 15 minutes. Yeah, mostly 1 minute per drawing. But from the beginning to the drawing production, it took probably half an hour. So it's really fast. It's really quick for optioneering. So what we have to update an option, which is the case every time. We go back to InfraWorks because it's there that everything started. So we generate a new option. We try to keep that option in the memory so we can always go back to what the client was asking the first time. And then we do exactly the same process. We export again. We generate an option to IMX. We go back into Civil 3D. Always remember to remove the proposed ground this time. And everything started exactly in the same way. The only thing you have to do in Civil 3D now that you have the second option is just go under the Manage Data Shortcuts, and then just swap the two profiles. So the old profile with the new profile. It's just a matter of minutes again. That's the new option. That's the previous option. And then you just rebuild the corridor. I usually avoid to have a rebuild automatic corridor, because if the corridor is really complicated, that again will take time from your process. So it's all about try to tweak as much as possible the platform to not regenerate every time, to be resilient as much as possible, to swap the things at any time, and just few clicks for regenerate everything. So this one is regenerated. We already had the assembly. The long section is updated. And that's the bad thing. You have to regenerate the drawings, because the drawings, even though the data shortcuts are coming through the drawing, they are not updated. So you have to regenerate the drawings. But if you have the drawings in any CDE, like ProjectWise or BIM 360, that will uprev. So you can always go back and get the previous set of drawings if you need to. So we asked for these features as well. It seems this feature is coming. They always say it's coming, of course. But yeah, it seems that we're pretty close to have the way of having bidirectional connection between Civil 3D and InfraWorks. So we don't have to export again the IMX. We can just link two projects and send information back and forth between the two of them. And if we have a new option, we can just choose to refresh the drawings without regenerating the drawings, which is slightly different. So if now it's taking probably 40 minutes, the entire process, it's probably going to go 30 to 25 minutes, which is amazing from a designer point of view. That's bad, okay? So remember that this is not probably the best thing to do. So what's next now? All happy. Dynamo in Civil 3D. So we have Dynamo in Civil 3D starting with 2020. And it is really powerful now because it opens lots of possibilities in terms of parametric design inside Civil 3D. The bad thing for me is still AutoCAD. That's the problem with Civil 3D. So you can generate objects. We're using a lot now Dynamo for Civil 3D to place, for example, posts and signs, to create overhead-wise structures for rail design, or just to place lighting fixtures if it is a road design, for example. So we use a lot that. It's pretty powerful, but it's a 3D block. It's a 3D AutoCAD block. And even if it is a dynamic block, it doesn't really work really well. So we would like to have something more powerful, and that's the reason why we still do this kind of things in Revit. We don't do it in Civil 3D for Dynamo. Dynamo for Civil 3D. But it's really powerful. It all comes from a GitHub repository. It's an open source thing that you can go and customize as much as you want. We started to customize it, but then we decided that it's not worth to customize it because we want to do it another way. That's why for me it's a bit ugly, because it's good, but not that good. It's good, but it's AutoCAD. So you can still customize everything like you would do in Revit, in Dynamo for Revit. So you can use Python, you can use C# to create your custom nodes. And the good thing is that you can access directly the API in Civil 3D. Whereas if you want to access Civil 3D from Revit, you go through the COM API. If you want to know more about that, just go and see my class from last year. I talk about how to connect Civil 3D and Revit using the API. That's another ugly thing for me. So I already talked about using BIM 360 collaboration for Civil 3D now. It's a very good thing, but it's still not really performant. So it's not yet there, okay? It's good that they started to do it, but it's not yet there. So we're not going to use it in the next couple of projects. We'll probably wait another year before starting to use this collaboration for Civil 3D. And the reasons are that we can't really use it for government and defense project at the moment. But it's a good news. As I said, you set the data shortcuts as you saw in the beginning of the presentation. Just you need to go and find your BIM 360 through the desktop connector. Make sure you update both Civil 3D and the desktop connector, because if you update only Civil 3D and not the desktop connector, it's not going to work. So latest version of Civil 3D, latest version of desktop connector. Again, very difficult for enterprises because we usually roll over the software every 2 months, every 6 months. It depends on the testing process. That's another screenshot of Dynamo, this time inside Revit, and that's what we are trying to customize at the moment. So those are, at the beginning, we were trying to use some import, report, classical export, alignment export, X, Y, and Z, and then use it to create the points inside Revit, and using that to drive all the geometries modeling inside Revit. But we found that it is not very performant because you have to ask the designer to export for you a report and then use that report, which one is the latest one. So we started to customize our own nodes using C# and writing some custom nodes. We just started to see what we really want about the alignment. So we want to know the stations, we want to know X and Y, we want to draw the curve immediately inside Revit, we want to have the profiles. If we have multiple profiles, we want to choose which one is the profile we want. So all the simple stuffs, but we want to connect straight into Civil 3D. If they change something, I want that now, not tomorrow when the designer is able to export for me the report. And they have to save it somewhere, and they're not going to send you an email. So I want to connect immediately to that project and get the latest information. If there is an update, I want to know which one is the update, so I can also track the differences between the two of them. There's a bunch of nodes we developed to try to understand if there is a difference between the two alignment. So those are some of the examples. Specifically, we use this approach with adaptive components. How many of you are aware of adaptive components in Revit? That's bad. I'm going to add another one here for bad. So make sure you go now and try to understand what adaptive components are, because that's the most powerful thing inside Revit. Everyone is saying Revit is not for civil infrastructure. That's probably right. Everyone is saying you can't create very complex shapes in Revit. That's not true. And those images are the results. So you can see this is a very complex cross passage. There's a TBM tunnel. There's a cavern. There's a mine cavern. This one is a cross passage. And that's a very high parametric cross passage that can cut anything is connected to, can be cut from anything is connected to, can change the shape based on what is connected to, and it's just one family with a bunch of parameters, not that much really, considering the complexity. I call this one the spider because it's based on 4 points. So you place these 4 points on the alignment, and based on the two alignment, it's going to drive the vertical and the horizontal direction of the cross passage, making sure that the cross passage openings are always square to the alignment, not depending on the real location of the cross passage. It's going to report the chain age. It's going to report lots of information about it. And this one is just one piece of the TBM ring, fully customizable. It doesn't matter how many how many segments has the TBM ring, the dimension, the tapering of the ring. It's fully customizable, and that's just adaptive components is. So we use largely Grasshopper and Rhino as well sometimes to optioneer complex shapes, but it doesn't mean that you can't do it in Dynamo. It just depends on the workflow we are using on that specific project. And this, for example, it is an example of the kinematic envelope creation, which is just the swept envelope of the train depending on the cant in the curve. So we use that for coordination purposes and space proofing. But the process we use for Grasshopper is the same we use for Dynamo. In fact, we have the same libraries built both for Grasshopper and for Dynamo. So depending who is the designer, if it is more comfortable with Dynamo, he has the same tools in Dynamo. If he is more comfortable in Grasshopper, we use Grasshopper. That's good. So adaptive components, very good. I couldn't find awesome, but yeah, good enough. Okay. I don't want to dig into the code, but that's actually one of the screenshots of how the code is broken into different pieces. and what are the variables that you can access when you create a node. There's plenty of documentation on the Dynamo Primer on how to create your custom nodes for Dynamo. The good thing about this is that when you create a piece of code that is good enough for Dynamo, is good enough for Grasshopper, and is good enough if you want to create a plugin for Revit. So the same piece of code can be used for multiple platforms. It's just the first part that is slightly changing depending on the platform. That's good, because when we prototype something, we usually prototype it for one platform, and then we use the same code inside other platforms as well. Another good news, today at AU, I'm making this as an open source. So if you go and you connect to this one, you can download the full code and start your own journey. So that node that you saw before in Dynamo, you can download it and use it now. Of course, it's not the full one, but it's good enough. Okay? So that was for me the starting point, and I like to share with everyone from where we start mostly. Lesson learned. Who is who? Who is the good? Who is the bad? Who is the ugly? Well, for me, all products are good, are bad, and ugly at the same time. There's no one that is better than another. There's no Autodesk better than Bentley. There's no Rhino better or Grasshopper better than Dynamo, really. So everyone does the job, and all depends on the time, all depends on the client expectation, depends on the budget, of course, because the project manager doesn't want to pay for your time most of the time. Luckily enough, I have my budget now. But the most important thing is data is the key. So Autodesk University, it's just talking only about data. So if you've been to the first keynote on Monday, that guy, that baseball things full of money, was talking about data and how he used data to find good players compared to his teammates. So data is the C. So if you didn't see the keynote, make sure that you go and see it when the recording will be available. He was always saying that he has lots of money. I don't know why. So don't try to build new workflow from my point of view. So what I always say is that don't try to build new workflows to work around existing crap workflows. Okay? Because I don't want to go there and see people saying, oh, no, that's the way we do it. You find a way to work around in your software. No, that's not the truth. If your workflow is crap, I'm going to change it. Okay? So that's it. Believe it or not, I'm going to say that your workflow is crap. So, and I will demonstrate that it's crap workflow. So let's try to change it together. Let's find a point. So this class material will be, as with all the things that I show in the class material, will be available to GitHub probably today. I just need to upload it. And that's the GitHub repository where you can find it. You just type my name and you search for AU 2019. It's going to be pretty quick too, even if you don't have the link. And I like that. Better starts now. So you start now to learn about adaptive components. You start now to learn about data shortcuts. You start now to learn about InfraWorks if you don't know it. So there's no better time to start immediately to learn new things. And AU is always full of new things. For me, this year was specifically a blast because I saw very nice, very interesting classes. And I think there's always something to learn, even if you are a professional. So I'm going to have another, because data is the key, I'm going to have another presentation in the expo at 5:30 about a solution we specifically developed in ANZ called Analytics. It's all about data. It's all about how you use that data to understand the project, how to manage compliances reports, how to manage issues, how to manage trends in issue solving, and all these kind of things. So make sure to come to our booth, which is just in the construction area, very close to construction area. Actually, it's that one. You'll find it. And those are some of the other classes that my colleagues are also presenting at the theater. This one is mine. Where is it? 5:30. They wrote Corduro, but it's on the panel. It's right. So don't forget to provide feedbacks. I'm a veteran, but I always like feedbacks. It's always difficult to ask people to provide feedbacks. I'm the first one that I try to provide feedbacks during the night for all the classes. It's not easy to do it now, but remember to provide feedbacks. If you like it, if you don't like it, what you don't like it. Specifically, if you don't like it, I want to have your feedbacks because those are really important for us. Just send me an email. Whatever you need, send me an email. I'm always happy to share, if I can share it, of course. Otherwise, I'll tell you I can't share it. But whatever you saw here, I can share it with you, even the families, if you want to have a look and try to understand how we use adaptive components. If you need more information about Dynamo and how that script was working, just send me an email. I probably won't reply before Monday, but I'll make sure to reply to everyone, like I always try to do. And that's it. Thank you for coming.